Hello and greetings to all. I come to you today with a continuation of the discussion of the spectrum of indigeneity, which I do discuss in detail in the videos that I've recorded thus far. Now, the title of this video is The Totality of Us. Once again, being all inclusive of the experiences of the various members that comprise these spectrums of a said ethnic group. So at this point, we're going far and beyond just the ethnicity of an indigenous person, indigenous American, Maori, Filipino, Samoan, you name it, and going into the respective spectrums of other ethnic groups with whom we might share this continent or country with. Now, what brought the topic to my head is some tweets that I read in response to the fact that Beyonce and Jay-Z did not stand for the national anthem. This is in the tradition of other African American activists who have either taken a knee or have not stood in protest of the various injustices that African Americans and perhaps other people of color experience in this country. And a lot of these tweets were in the likes of, ooh, how persecuted are you, billionaires and whatnot? You guys are affluent and wealthy. What kind of injustices could possibly befall the two of you and your family? Well, Beyonce, for one, has been very expressive when it comes to, manifesting her love of blackness in, some of the videos, some of the presentations. Obviously, one of them in which she raised her fist, and there's a lot of Black Panther iconography. She's criticized because she's wearing, a wig that is not too Afrocentric, so to speak. So even though they are affluent people, very successful people, and the most of us might think that they no longer endure or suffer from racial persecution or injustices, they, for one, are speaking on, acting on behalf of those whose voices we can no longer hear, such as Sandra Bland and other African Americans who died in the hands of police, or other injustices in the hands of white supremacists. They might have, in their younger years, experienced it or have been closely related to others of African American or colored origin who have endured these type of injustices. So the fact that they are wealthy and in good standing and they are no longer as susceptible to these type of injustices doesn't mean that they are nobody to chime in to black activism. Why? Because they're speaking on behalf of the totality of their ethnic group, which includes, the poor, the marginalized, the darker skinned African Americans, all types of people who comprise this ethnicity, this American ethnicity, or this ethnicity throughout the diaspora of African presence, from Latin America, the more renowned, such as Cuba, Brazil, Dominican Republic, and whatnot. So they are speaking and they are acting on behalf of the totality of the spectrum of Africanness. I'm nobody to create a spectrum for them, they have different terminology, but I just want to compare it to what I'm getting at through the spectrum of indigeneity. As I mentioned in my book and elsewhere, I have been confronted by coworkers, friends, acquaintances who say, how oppressed are you, who just got back from getting an Americano at Starbucks and working your 9-to-5 office job? Well, just like Beyonce and Jay-Z, well, obviously I'm not affluent like they are, but I am in a good standing where I am not as severely affected as, say, somebody in the Amazon, somebody, not being even able to speak their own language, indigenous language. Well, to a certain extent I am, because if I speak Spanish to my mother or some other language, now what? In public, and a white supremacist, patriot is there, I could be, attacked verbally. I could be told to go back to my country. I could be told all kinds of things. So in reality, I'm not all immune. I am not completely immune, pardon me, of some sort of oppression or persecution. And there are other members within the spectrum of indigeneity who daily face struggles that greatly surpass those that I go through. but in reality, the experience is to be perceived in its totality. And that's a very totalitarian view. I feel for the children who are being separated from their parents at the border. I feel for the subhuman conditions that a lot of brown migrants are experiencing in these internment camps. I feel for the fact that Native Americans in the U.S. have a shorter life expectancy than any other ethnic group. I feel for the large amount of meth and alcohol abuse in tribal territories and reservations and whatnot. I feel for my brothers and sisters in the Amazons who are being displaced after living their whole entire life in a certain way. They're needing to assimilate or else. I feel for each and every brown group within the spectrum of indigeneity. So as such, we do need to advocate for one another because we do not know how that particular support and advocacy can apply to our own experience until we actually begin to engender it. So I will do more videos that continue in this particular discussion, the spectrum of indigeneity and the totality of our heritage as brown indigenous people in this country, continent, hemisphere, and worldwide.